I came from Finland, and I worked there as a consultant, company called Digital Illustrated, and I have been moving around with these tools like PowerApps and Flow since 2016, so at the very beginning of the release of these tools. And first, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, because without these guys, we couldn't have events like these ones. I think this is very nice. We have a very nice place, we have pizza and we have everything here, so you should be very happy. Okay, that's the start. PowerApps is a part of Power Platform. You might heard of it. And there is also two other guys there in the Power Platform. There is Pertilla and Flow. But the PowerApps is essential tool in this Power Platform. And the Power Platform is all about it is the citizen developer platform. And it's all about that. The idea is that everyone can build solutions and applications by using these tools. And the PowerApps is a tool for building the user interface for these applications, or actually the applications. You can build simple forms by using it. You can build much more complex like business applications by using the PowerApps. Yes. And warning, this was the introduction part. I have one more. It would be easy if there is the only one PowerApps, but there is actually three. There is these Canvas PowerApps. They are meant to build pixel perfect application for the phones or for the browser. You can embed those themes on the SharePoint, and you can use all kind of data sources behind. Then we have these model-driven PowerApps, and those usually they all look pretty much like this. They are based on data model, which lays on common data service, so you have any other option to store your data than the CDS common data service. And then last week they announced these PowerApps portals, which also are relied on the common data service, and they are they are a tool for building web portals to anonymous user and the Quest user. But today, whenever I say magic word PowerApps, I mean actually this Canvas PowerApps. Today we forget these two guys. And that was the introduction part. Now we can start diving. And we start with a concept called delegation, because the delegation is super important in this PowerApps area. And usually when people start to build PowerApps and they hit the delegation warnings, they just don't care. Because normally the PowerApps it still works. It might be that it doesn't work anymore properly, but it runs. And all the warnings are kind of not so specific. They say that your PowerApps might not work with large data sets anymore. They don't say what that large data set actually means. And the delegation is important because when your PowerApps has these delegation issues, it might end the situation that you have to drop some functionalities out, or you have to move your data from SharePoint to somewhere else. And it usually has some performance impacts also on your PowerApps. So that's the three key things why you should be concerned about delegation. But what this delegation is? Usually you have there is my PowerApps, and usually the PowerApps is use some data from somewhere. And this example, I get all these lines are stores, and I get them from the SharePoint. And so I actually do query from my application to the data source. And the delegation is all about that which one of these guys do all the work with the query. So if I can delegate the query to the SharePoint, then the SharePoint will do all the work and returns all the data I like to have. But if I do query that I cannot delegate to the data source, then all the work is done here, and it is huge difference with these two situations. I presented them now. Because now, in this case, I do query that can be delegated. I have these stores, I have SharePoint, and on the SharePoint I have 50,000 items on there in one list. And I like to show here all the stores that are located in Madrid. And I do query. In this case, I do filtering. And filtering can be delegated to SharePoint. And now SharePoint returns to my applications 5,000 stores that are located in Madrid. But now I do almost the same thing. I do search to the location column in SharePoint, and search cannot be delegated to the SharePoint. And now what happens is that the SharePoint returns to my application from these 50,000 items 500 first ones. And then my PowerApps do the search on those 500 ones. It might be that there is these 5,000 stores located in Madrid. If I do the search, what happens that in my application I get only 50 from those 5,000, and that's the difference. Okay, how I know what kind of queries I can safely use, what can be delegated and which ones are not? It depends, and it depends about the data source you use. After that, it depends on the function you are using. Are you doing filtering, searching, sorting, summarizing? And after that, it also depends on predicate searches. And actually, after that, it depends on the data types. But you don't have to remember all this, because PowerApps, it will tell you if you hit the delegation issue. You get this nice, it's not so nice here, nice yellow triangle, and it means that now you have delegation issues on your query. And you can open your expression, and in your expression it shows with this blue line that in that part you have delegation issues. In this example, it is this sum operation, because we cannot delegate the sum operation to SharePoint. And whenever you see these magical symbols, there's only one question you have to keep in mind. Do I have ever more than 500 items on my data source? 500 items ever. Is it a lot? No. It might be today it's okay. After 6 months, do I have more than 500 items? After 1 year, do I have more than 500 items? In many cases you have. And then you have to figure out what to do. Then you have to get rid of those delegation issues. You have to start archiving your items, maybe, or you have to change your data source. But you have to do something. Okay, that's the delegation part. Then, in many cases, people asking, I have this kind of little bit larger SharePoint is maybe 50,000 items in it. Can PowerApps handle that one? Is it okay? I build the application on top of that kind of SharePoint? And of course, you can. And you should maybe index some columns on your SharePoint. This helps a lot. But after that, it's all about getting rid of these delegation issues. And let's go through few the most common I have seen. First, in here I like to filter all those my stores. I show you an example. All the stores by the status, like I have some orders or whatever, and usually they have some status in the application, like the new one, in progress, waiting for audit, handle, closed, reject, whatever. And here I try to filter these items by this status. And everyone loves in SharePoint these choice columns. And these here, these choice columns. But choice column is so-called complex column. And from PowerApps point of view, you cannot delegate anything related to these complex columns to the SharePoint. So you cannot do that. But what you can do, you just can get rid of these. Just don't use the choice columns on SharePoint. Just have plain text columns. And with plain text columns, you can do this conversation, this filtering. And from user point of view, nothing changed. You can build your application so that you have these nice looking drop downs and so on. But you have to, for example, get the values from the separate SharePoint list or somewhere else. You cannot use the choice columns if you have these big or larger SharePoint lists. Second one, in many cases you end up in a situation that you have different. For example, here the ID is number, of course. But from some reason you have here in SharePoint you have ID in number in SharePoint, but in your application, from some reason this ID is actually text field. And because we are lazy one, we usually do that. We have to do data conversion, and we do it for the first one because it's the first one. And this ID is actually on the SharePoint, and this ID here is in our PowerApps. And we cannot do any data conversions on the columns that are living in the data store side, because we cannot delegate these data conversions. So this we can do. But we can do this. Just same thing, but we do the data conversion on the PowerApps side. Same thing, and this can be delegated. Next one, in many cases, almost in every solution, we like to filter items by like who has been created, who has been approved those items, who have been modified those. And here in SharePoint we have these nice created by and modified by columns. And those columns are again these complex columns you cannot touch. You can filter or look up by using those. But what you can do, of course, and you can, when you save your items, update the items, you can have your own text columns there, and you store the email address or GUID or username of that user to that plain text field. And by using that field, you can do the filtering without the delegation problem. And the last one, what you usually like to do is to have some filtering by date. And again, the date is complex column, you can do that. And this is actually, it's not complex, but it's very interesting how to solve this one. But you can use numbers, so you can all the time you can convert these created, actually date times or dates, to just integers. Put in that formula first year, then you have month, and then you have day. And of course you can do all the operation by using these integers. So it's kind of workarounds that you can use all the all the data you have there in the SharePoint side, but you actually cannot use these nice columns SharePoint provides. Let's see this in action also. So here I have my sample PowerApps, and it's relied on this list, and as you see here, this is this created by field. Then I have the same information in my own text column. This column is choice column, and then I have my own choice column that is only storing the ticket value of that one, and then I have a created column, and this is the created time as an integer, as a number. And let's look this application is here. And there is 50,000 items. Of course, I can do the filtering by ID. I can right here. Oh, and now it's slow step. No? Yes. It's waking up, and as you see after that one, it's actually pretty fast. You can play around with these 50,000 items, and you can filter these items by using this choice column. Now it takes a little bit time, but you can use this. If we look here in this color, what we are actually doing, we can comment these out, and let's try to just use these here. So here's the filter expression, and this one is choice column from the SharePoint, and now it's told me that we cannot do that. This can be delegated here. And I try to filter in my color that it shows all the items from the list that has in this choice column the value of choice 2. And there is none, because all the choice 2s are after the first 500 items. Because if I change this to use my own text column here, my own choice column, where it stores the exactly same value, then there will be all these items having choice 2 in this choice column. So that's the key idea of getting rid of these delegations. Okay. Then the second question I have been asked many times is that how to pick the right data storage I should use. I have all kinds of options here. And from my point of view, you have actually in Microsoft environment, you have only 3 options. You can use SharePoint, Azure SQL database, or Common Data Service. And SharePoint, it's pretty nice because all the makers, usually the makers, they are already familiar with the SharePoint. They can create the new list, they understand the columns, they can make views and so on. And they have access, they have permissions to create the list. And with SharePoint, it's very easy to build row-level security, which is very common requirement of these solutions. And it's very easy to play around with the attachment. You can attach the documents on the items and images, because it's the common functionality of the SharePoint, and the PowerApps support that one. And it's free. The downside is that there is some limitation of these delegations that I just told. Then you can use the SQL database on Azure. And then I think the biggest thing with the SQL is that with the SQL database you can delegate the search operations. You can actually do the real search for each goal. And it's not unlimited, but if you have several million items, it might be that you are moving from the SharePoint to the SQL. I have been make some sample application. I have PowerApps on top of SQL, and there was 5 million rows. It works pretty well. If you go with the SQL, then you have to remind that all the users actually use the same SQL database login for using the database. And if you have some confidential data on your database, this can be dangerous, because if you are creating PowerApps in your default environment and then you share your application to the people, then actually all the people who can use that application, they actually have that connection shared with them also. And in default environment, because everyone can make the application by themselves, they can actually do the new PowerApps application and use that your SQL database connection and read all the data that specific SQL database login have access on the database. So be careful with the SQL databases in that sense. If there is some confidential data, so in there. SQL, they are usually cheap, and you can extend your application by using stored procedures and views. You can do all kind of nice stuff and very performant stuff. But at the same time, because this is at the end, this is the citizen developer platform, and when you are start to play with the SQL database, you can say goodbye for all the citizen developers. They don't have any access to the Azure usually. Maybe they don't understand how to build SQL databases. They don't understand the relations and indexes and so on. So that's the big decision to make, to use the SQL database. And the common data service, it's shortly how I see it. It's kind of, it has the best parts of both SharePoint and SQL. It's the good thing, but the bad thing is that it's not free and it's not either cheap. It's €6 per month per user, so it might be that your customer don't want to go there now. But when you do the selection, then you can shortly do this. If you can afford, if you have the money, go with the CDS for tabs. If you really have to have a search and you have more than 500 items ever on your application, then go to the SQL. If you have huge amount of items, go with the SQL, and all the rest, go with the SharePoint. Yes?
The common data service, I understand that is, you can have only one common data service per environment, isn't it? So that can be a constraint.
Yeah, only one common data service.
So if you need to have specific data for your own application not to be shared with others,
but inside the common data service, you can have all kind of entities. Entities is kind of similar thing than SQL tables or SharePoint lists, and you can have your own permission with all the entities, so you can. Yeah. And of course, this is not this black and white. From my experience, we do maybe half of the solution we use SQL, and the rest we do with the SharePoint. Few only that we have done on top of the common data service currently. Okay, next one. You have been starting to build these nice PowerApps, and you are so excited, and you have put all kind of functionalities in your application, and then you will notice that, oh my god, this is freaking slow. What you can do? Okay, just remember the first thing. These PowerApps, can be extremely slow on older phones. Because actually these old phones, they just run out of the memory. Because this is citizen developer platform, there's all kind of stuff between the actual hardware and the end user. There's all kind of layers that helps you as an application maker to do the stuff. But the downside is that there's that all kind of extra layers that make all these little thicker. But what you can do with these phones, it's not so much you can do, but you can reduce the number of screens and reduce the number of controls, because every controls and every screen take a little bit space and memory, and when the application runs, PowerApps runs, every time something happens, the platform has to go through all the screens and all the controls and decide what this means and what happens in my application. And with the older phones, the only way to have some more performance is that you have to reduce the number of screens or the numbers of the controls. You can divide. If you have one huge application, you have to divide it, for example, in several separate applications. Then check all the expensive operations located in for all loops and colors, because if you have something like lookup or filter, something you are looking from the data source inside for all loops or calories, it means that it has been done. It is done several times when the application is rendering the page, and it might slow your application. And it slow your application. And please check all the delegation warnings, because when you have delegation issues, it means that your application gets all kind of data from the data source and try to figure out by itself what to do. And of course, the mobile phones or the older ones, these also takes memory and processor time from the device. And if you this is common also that if you have noticed that, for example, with the SharePoint, if you are saving one item, it can take something from half a second to the 1 second. It's okay usually. If you are, for example, grid and there is 100 items and you like to save all of those, and every item takes 1 second, it means that with saving all of those, it takes 9 seconds. It's 1.5 minutes. It's not okay anymore. So if you have that kind of operation, you should pass that operation to the flow and do it there, because you can use the concurrency there. If you have heavy logic on your application on start, you are loading stuff from plenty of data source, for example, you can use concurrency. So it speed up your application starting a little bit. And every time you have repeating items on your application, use calories. And if you have repeating items between your screens, you use the components, because by using calories and components, you actually reducing amount of your controls, and it makes your PowerApps faster, because there is not so much stuff PowerApps is going to in the runtime. Let's look few of those in action also. I have here my demo application here. Here. And here, this kind of making orders and processing orders. I have orders here. I can filter these by status and by ID or by date. And if I open one, I can see here, this is the order part. And for each order, there is order lines. They can be, 100 lines related to this order. And if we look these in SharePoint, I have two lists here. These are the orders, here. 4,000 orders, and the order lines I have to under 50,000 order lines related. So it's about 60 lines per each order. Not so bad. And here we see, we go back to my list. We see here in the list, our friend is delegation warning here. And it's inside the gallery. So like I said, this is bad. And what I do here, what I try to do here is I like to calculate the total sum of the order, because all the lines related to the order have total value of each line, and there might be several lines, and here I try to calculate the total value of the single order. And this is stupid because now it actually for each line, because this cannot be delegated, it has to get all the items from the order rows list and calculate the total value here in my PowerApps side. And if I can present this, you can actually see here. Now here is all the total values. But if I scroll down this, you see that what happens that the small amount of time all the values are same, and with little delay it calculates them. Let's see. Here. Now it's all the same. Now they was updated. Of course, I have running this in my laptop, but I have fast internet connection. But you can imagine what happens when you're using your phone with slow internet connection and much more slower processor. But what I can do is that if I really of course I can say for the customer, okay, this is so we cannot do that. This costs too much in here, and it will be small. But of course we can calculate this value. Every time we save the order, we can calculate the value and save it also to the order part. And that's all the problem. Then after that we can just say, show all the data from one single SharePoint list, and we don't have to do these lookouts anymore. It's kind of problem solved. Let's go to the one single order here. And here, like I said, here I can update them and do more items. Here I can update all the values here. And there can be, plenty of these order lines. And how I do the saving all the lines, I actually submit this header part, and after that, what I do, I just call the flow, and I pass all these lines here. I build JSON text string and pass the JSON to the flow, and in flow and in flow I parse the JSON, and then I can go through all these items, and I can look at if we are creating new ones, or are we updating the existing ones, and we can do this in flow. And the good part in using flow is that we can here apply to each loop. We can go to the settings, and we can turn on this concurrency, and we can define, okay, I allow that we can do 30 operations at the same time, and that means that if I have 60 items, updated items in my order, and each item, saving the item takes 1 second. If I store them in my PowerApps, it took 1 minute. If I pass them to my flow and turn on this concurrency, then it takes approximately 2 seconds to save them all. Yes, nice. And one more thing here about the delegation. As you see here, in my order I have this order value also here, and it has this delegation mark. And you might think that why it was corrected number. Each of the orders have actually calculated correctly the total sum of the order value, and I just told that you are screwed if there is more than 500 items, and I have 250,000 items there. Why the hell this is still working correctly? And it's working correctly because the problem is this sum function here. But what I do before that, I filter all the order rows according to this order ID, and in this solution, with each order ID, there can be only 100 rows related to that one, and this is run first. And when this problematic part starts, we don't have 2,000 and 50,000 items anymore. We have maximum 100, and because of that, this sum still works because we do the filtering before. So it's kind of, you have to understand that these operations are done, in the inner one is done first, and you can utilize the outputs of the inner parts on the second level. But it's, whenever you have these delegation marks, you have to be very careful what you are doing because you might end up to build something that seems to be working, but it's actually not working. Then, this is nothing to do with the performance, but people are asking about the printing because, for example, here we have this header stuff and we have plenty of items in one gallery, and only these 5 of those are showing now. How we can implement the printing if we like to print these orders. And here, actually, it's interesting that there is no print icon in PowerApps because there is no printing functionality, but I use that one. And by hitting this, now it's working, and it's actually, what happens, it pulls out printable version of this order, and there is all these lines. All these order lines are here. Okay, and how this is done? This is actually HTML file, and it's living in block storage. But how the heck I did it? It's actually pretty much same than the saving. When I hit this button, I actually call the flow. I pass all the order rows as a JSON and the header information as a parameters. And then we go to the flow. You can see here. Here is the printing flow. I get all the parameters in. Then I start to build my own HTML file with the header information. Then I parse this, and then is this. Go has this very handy create HTML table function. I create table about all the rows related to this order. Then I finalize my HTML file. Then I store the HTML file to my block storage in the Azure, And after that I return the URL that PowerApps can open, and it nicely opens the web page from the blob storage. At the same time, I start this delay for 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes I delete the file from the blob storage, so there is no reason to store them at the blob storage. And actually there is plenty of stuff happening behind the scenes, but this is actually working pretty nice. It takes 1 second, 1.5 seconds. And that's one way to implement printing in PowerApps. Cool. And next topic is the how these PowerApps look like. These I heard a lot. Okay, this tool is pretty nice. We love it. But all these PowerApps look like shit. And it's not PowerApps platform fault. It's usually because when people building these solutions by using PowerApps, the main concern is to deliver something that works. They like to have something useful, and how it looks like it's not relevant in that point. What you can do little bit more polished solutions by using PowerApps, and I have few examples about this, just to convince my customers that it can be done. One of these examples is this. I broke it. Yeah. Here again. This copy of mobile application from a company called Viking Line, and I built the same with PowerApps. You can browse your tips here. Yes, you can select your tip here, and this is all the information about what's happening during the cruise. And then there is some links to the tax-free catalogs and so on. And shortly, I can show you few things. I show this my trip here. This is just gallery. You can use galleries very different ways. You just add some graphics and icons and colors, and they will look like much different than these original ones. Like here, this is the normal gallery here. That one. Same element. You can use galleries, just be creative and polish them. But for example, here in the bottom part, I have this navigation, and this is simple. I have in my screen only one image at the bottom, and this nice red color. It's in the image. That's just one image, and on top of the image, I have here. Let's go that way. Yeah. On top of the image, I have these shapes, boxes that are transparent, and each of these transparent boxes I have all the navigation commands. So just image background, and then you put these transparent boxes and use these as navigation elements. And this is done same way here. This is just background here, and on top of each of these kind of buttons, I have shape, transparent circle that has this mouse hover effect. You can set some transparency control. and you can make the effect that somebody push the button. Then second one is this Finner application. Here you can see you can pick the trip. This is actually my real trip here in Madrid. I make the copy of that, and here these are, like, remember, repeating items. This is gallery. Then I have dynamic elements, repeating elements. This is the second gallery, and this is just the rest of the stuff. And this button here, I calculated related how many items I have here in gallery, and this button dynamically moves them in the right place. And then I have here, when you pick the trip, I have here main screen that tells where you are going. The check-in opens in 166 days, and then you can move these information panel, and it's kind of goes on top of the rest of the screen, and it fades down the text and image there. This is exactly how the original Finner application works. And people have been asking how the hell you have been done that one. But again, it's very simple. I have this image here, the main image, and then I have gallery, and I move the gallery on top of the whole screen. And inside my gallery, I have 8 items. First 7 items are 100 pixel high, and they are transparent. And then the last one, it's much more higher, and it's not transparent. And now, when you move this gallery here, it's kind of looks like that the items are going on top of the image. Actually, the gallery is all the time, it's all top of the image. You just fade. And how this is done, this fading effect here. It's simple, very simple also, because this image has transparent property. I'm sorry if you don't see all this. And the gallery here, the image transparency, this gallery.visible index multiplied by something, and this visible index, it tells that the number the index of the item of that gallery that is the most top. And in the beginning it's number 1, and if you scroll down it goes 2, 3, 4, and then when I use that in my transparency property, the transparency changed from the almost 0 to at the face, and at the end it's 1, and then this image is disappeared. Just few examples for you that don't underestimate these controls. They are very simple controls here in PowerApps, but when you just be a little bit creative, you can all kind of stuff by using these ones. These are pretty. There is all basic stuff in PowerApps, and you can build on top of it all. And as you see, I couldn't do this kind of application because I don't have the visual eye, and I'm not capable to do the graphics. But if you have to do some nice looking stuff, you have to have some people doing the graphics, and then you can do it with the PowerApps. Have I 5 minutes? About
7.
7.
7, 8.
You give me more. All right. Okay. This is the last one. Lessons learned. What I have learned during these few years. First one. Don't underestimate SharePoint lists. This guy here, this is not from the start. This is my colleague Pekka from Finland. He is developer. And I just told him that, hey, I made a game one nice PowerApps solution for the customer, and I stored all the data to SharePoint. And this is what I get all the time. Kind of SharePoint has, I think SharePoint has bad reputation in some sense. But when you are building this PowerApp stuff, the SharePoint is, I think, it's very, very good starting point to store your data. You can do all kind of like this row level security and attachment and so on in very, very easy way. And like I showed you, you can actually store the SharePoint is pretty much the data. You don't have to stack on 500 or 5,000 items. You can do much more. Second one is that don't overestimate these SQL databases, because these developer guys love them, and SQL is super. But in project with PowerApps, it might be happen that you start with SharePoint and then you have some problems, and all the guys said, oh, don't forget these problems. We are moving to the SQL, and all these problems disappear. Okay, few of those problems will disappear, but I guarantee that you have new ones. So it's SQL in this world. SQL is not the silver bullet that solves everything. You have to know what you're doing. Third one, if you are building solutions that are used by mobile phones, your first task is find out what kind of mobile devices your end users have. Because if they have older ones, you are in trouble. You have to have same kind of phones on your desk, and from the day one, start to test with that kind of phone. Because I have done this. With one customer, he does very, very nice stuff. I tested with my iPhone, and then first time end users start to try the solution, and the application starting took 20 seconds. They have these like Samsung A3 from 2040 or something phones like that. So you have to know the devices, because Microsoft can tell you anything, but don't believe they don't work with the older ones. Yeah. Preview means preview. I think the problem is that the most of the preview stuff Microsoft has in Power Platform and in O365, they work so well that you forget that these are preview features. And I play with also with the customers with the preview features, but please note that if you are building something very serious, you don't want to have this preview stuff along, because when something happens, then you don't get any support. And the last one, if you have building these in your organization or on your customers, start planning some governance model from day one. Because if you don't, you will do. It's the same thing, I think, same thing than we have in the past with the SharePoint sites. There was plenty of those. Nobody knows what they are, who owns them, and what we are doing with these. Before that, it was sent into the Excel. All kind of nice Excel applications, and nobody knows who has actually built these and what we are doing with these. And now, at the very moment, the same thing is happening with the Power BI. In big organization, people have found this marvelous tool, and there might be thousands of reports. Nobody knows which one are the official one and which one not. And next, the same thing will happen with the PowerApps and flows. So start to prepare yourself. That's all. Thank you all. It was my pleasure to be here. Very nice. I'll be here all the rest of the evening also. So if you have, you can ask now. If you have something pop out your mind, you can grab me afterwards. We'll be here.
My question, because I saw that you have complex solutions, which are wonderful. I'm amazed. But my question is, how do you maintain those things? Because even for yourself, when past goes by, you don't remember how you did manage those things and how you are coping with that.
With your long run, making changes and so on.
How you debug the application, how you document the application, the variables, the things that you are going to analyze in the future, because or some other developer needs to use for maintenance purposes.
A good one. I believe in the philosophy that you have to make some kind of self-explanatory solutions. If you have to build comments on your code, you are doing something wrong, from my point of view. But usually, what I do as little documentation as I can. So just kind of map for me or the next guy, map from where to start. What are the key components? What are the tricky parts? And a little bit open these, but nothing no screenshots or something nobody updates those. Just the big picture, what we are doing, and the key points, and that's that. And you have, as you see in my demonstration, maybe I didn't rename all the controls, but that's the very important that you actually give some good names on each of your controls and your variables and your collections. It helps a lot.
So after naming convention system.
Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned you use SharePoint often, and one of the key things was the reliable security.
Yeah.
What do you use generally to control that?
So I use the items that, for example, if something we are doing like solution that we are handling request, so we do the list that everybody can create items, but I see only my own items. So it's that kind of stuff. It's very easy to do, and in some solutions that we have made, that we like to, whenever we create item in SharePoint, with some logic, we like to share that item for example some group or as isolated group. So kind of when I do the new item on the SharePoint, then the item is shared, for example, department officer from my department, and if you created item, then it's shared to the other people. And it's not easy to do with the SharePoint, but you can do, for example, for functions to the granting. But SharePoint is good at that because you can grant access for each item separately. And you can do it also in SQL, but with PowerApps using SQL, and you don't have to close it anymore. And you have to build all that stuff in your PowerApps, and it's kind of easy to do. Are we over time already?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, and if you have something more in your mind, just ask me. Thank you.